is the whole idea of going to the movies an antiquated boomer activity?
So everything that generally people thought made the home viewing experience inferior has either been wiped out of the discussion completely or has turned out to be superior. What would have to happen to bring you back to a theater? What has to come out to get you legitimately excited to go see a movie in the theater?
Like the average movie theater seat has 13 times the bacteria as your toilet. You should take all your clothes off essentially as soon as you get home and just throw them in the wash. Hey, welcome to The Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. We have a plethora of good news to share with all of you today. My name is Kevin Lieber, and with me as always is Matthew Tabor.
We do have good news, and I think we need news, don't we? Actually, you've been winning the good news battle here. You got not only good news, but great news. And that's good. But I think overall, we could use a little bit of a pick-me-up.
Yeah, I haven't been, we did a whole episode about my kidney stone saga. I don't remember if we did a follow-up to that, but it has been like one of the great Nordic sagas over the past 6 months, literally since January. Actually, when I was at the hospital yesterday, I told a nurse that I had been dealing with the kidney stone since January, and her jaw basically hit the floor. It was like, what? Why haven't you, had it removed or whatever? That's an insane amount of time to be dealing with that. Let me back up a second here. So I had agreed to have surgery done to remove the kidney stone. This was something I was reluctant to do, but after getting a couple of opinions and the thing not moving, it was decided, this is your only option. So I said, fine. That surgery was supposed to happen tomorrow, scheduled for tomorrow. Now, what I did do proactively on my own is I scheduled another CT scan a few days before the surgery. This was not in the plans. I was not supposed to have another scan, but I thought to myself, let me throw a Hail Mary pass into the end zone here and hope that, Larry Fitzgerald comes down with the ball, because there's a potential that it's been a couple of more months. Maybe the thing is gone and I don't even know it, which is a possibility here, which the urologist had explained, that the kidney stone is so small that it's not like this horrendous passing event is going to occur for me. He flat out said, you probably won't even notice it. It's not going to make a tinking noise when it like smashes into the porcelain of the toilet, and you'll never see the thing. It's microscopic.
The satisfying plink.
There'll be no plink. So about a month ago, I did wake up in the middle of the night with some weird bladder pain. It was a different pain. The prior pain was like higher up in my abdomen. This was much lower down. It was an odd feeling. I went to the bathroom, whatever. Since then, nothing. So for the last month, I have been just, crossing all appendages possible with the hopes that this thing was gone. And then that was the mini event I was hoping for. So this very morning, I'm at the hospital for my pre-op appointment because the surgery is tomorrow. And I get a phone call from the doctor saying the scan was clear, the thing is gone, the surgery is canceled, and I just about jumped through the ceiling of the office I was in. The nurse that I told, so the nurse who is the pre-op nurse is there, and she walks in as I had just received the news. And I'm just beaming, smiling ear to ear. And I'm like, forget it. I'm done. I'm leaving. Like, say no more. There's no reason to talk to me about any of this. The surgery is canceled. And she was just utterly baffled. Like, I thought when I was going to tell her that she was going to have some sort of like congratulatory expression, happy for you. Nothing. It was just like stone cold, like Easter Island man statue face. Like, she couldn't have been like less interested, and was just kind of like, okay. I'm like,
I imagine people do that. They just like back out on their own.
right.
I'm sure this happens all the time. And if she didn't have yet, the confirmation of this coming through, that yes, we don't have to do this anymore, we'll cancel everything, then she probably would wonder if you were just canceling it yourself. Yeah, but I mean, either way, like, it's not like anything for them depended on whether you had this or not. So, if that stuff gets canceled, it's like, well, I guess we go back to the schedule and do something else instead.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just another day at the human being body factory, and they just shuffle me out and bring the next one in. Yeah. So that is the best news that I have. The other good news that we received, culturally, as a society, we received the good news that Smiling Friends season 3 is coming. The Smiling Friends was renewed for another season today. That just broke. And we are in the midst of bringing the boys back to the podcast here on the Create Unknown in, the coming month or so. We should be hoping to figure that out. They're extremely, extremely busy with still the rollout of season 2 that's occurring, but it's in the cards, as they say.
And how many episodes are left in the season at this point?
Just a couple. Yeah, I think the season wraps like June 23rd or something like that.
Okay,
so a couple weeks.
Yeah, I couldn't remember how many episodes it was going to be.
Yeah, so they're almost done. Promoting the new episodes, and yeah, really looking forward to speaking with them about everything with season 2, because the season 1 discussion we had was great, and obviously the response to this has really snowballed. We were all really beyond excited about season 1. Mm-hmm. There's been so much time since then that obviously so many new fans have, sort of gathered for season 2. And one of the funniest things to me has been the meme. I don't know if you've seen this, about like the Rick and Morty bongs being replaced by Smiling Friends bongs. Do you know about the Rick and Morty bong thing?
I don't know it's a thing. I assume that there are bongs of everything, but yeah.
No, it's like oddly Rick and Morty focused, like the head shop bong world. There's so many Rick and Morty bongs.
It's funny that you say this, because when this was not long ago, it's like a month ago. I went somewhere and stopped in. I wanted to stop in a lot of places on the way back to do like little like errands almost, right? And there was this. I Google Map like vape shop or something to get coils. They're whatever. They're hard to get. You can't get them through the mail anymore. And it was. It wasn't a vape shop so much as one of these dens of the ganja. It was absolutely a weed shop. Now that, the proliferation of that in New York, I hadn't been into any shop like that since all of that had happened. But I mean, like in the parking lot, I could smell weed. I opened the door and it was like a strip mall parking lot, not some little thing. Yeah, it was on a normal, highway route kind of thing. So it's a big open place, and I can still smell the stench, right? But I went in, which it was very small. I guess they all are, but it was really little, and it was all paraphernalia, right? And there was so much Rick and Morty stuff. I now I understand now after you say this, yes. but I just at the time I thought, well, this is such a weird thing because it's kind of been a while since Rick and Morty was on the tip of everybody's tongue. I'm like, wow, they're still either crushing it in the bong world, or this is like overstock. Like they got to get rid of it somehow. But yeah, if it's still persisting, then okay, I guess that's a thing.
Yeah. So Rick and Morty still lives on in bong form somehow, for some reason, to the degree that this became a meme. And there were like a bunch of memes about, like Rick and Morty longingly looking at the days in which they dominated the glass cases of bong stores and then, being replaced by Smiling Friends. So that's all our Smiling Friends news. That's my personal news. And the big thing that I wanted to talk about today was Red Letter Media, who I would love to have those guys on the podcast at some point. I'm a big fan of Red Letter Media and have been for years. I actually snuck in a little Easter egg in the last Popular Science video, the Selectivision video, where the first Blu-ray DVD that I hold up is Space Cop, which is their movie. So I did that on purpose just to, rather than holding up Lord of the Rings or something, I thought it would be fun to give some YouTubers a little Easter egg shout out. They did a
nod.
Yeah, just a nod to the community to give back and to, keep it all in the family, as they say. They did this fascinating video recently discussing the decline of movie theaters. This has been an ever-growing topic as more and more movie theaters close and as more and more big blockbuster movies flop horrendously, with the most recent examples being Furiosa, which is the Mad Max prequel, and the Garfield movie, which also just did not perform well at the box office. So the Red Letter Media guys, they got together, and for the most part, it was kind of like Mike really going through a bullet pointed list of reasons why he thinks certainly the golden era of movie theaters is done, but it's looking more and more like the whole thing is done as an enterprise, like as a business. Like, how much longer can this be a thing in which people are going to a movie theater to watch movies? That's a big question, I think, in everyone's mind. Well, I'm getting a phone call. Very, very popular.
This phone call is the hospital calling Kevin to say, we don't need to do the surgery anymore, but we're going to be bored if we can't. So we need you to go back to the pre-op because we just got to do something today.
It's so funny that you say that, because in my dark and cynical mind, I was like, there's a non-zero chance that even if this thing doesn't appear, they could just lie. I would never know. I would never, ever, ever know if they just lied and said, yep, it's still there. We're doing the surgery, and I do the surgery. How would I ever know?
Yeah.
It's impossible.
What I wondered when you said you got the scan, it came back, this is gone, you don't need it. Well, if you hadn't had that scan, they would have done the surgery and then wound up with nothing to do once they were inside. And so I was wondering, well, how would that have played out if they do all this and they're just like, oh, well, I guess it's gone. I guess we wrap him back up.
Yeah, wrap me back up, but they still, jostled around my innards and have to put a stent in there that I have to live with for a week and then go back and have that removed. Yeah, believe me, that's why I had this scan scheduled, because I was like, what are we doing here if this thing's gone? Anyway, we're regressing a little bit. The topic of movie theaters is so interesting to me for a number of reasons. One of the first things that I thought of when the guys were talking about this actually harkened back to a conversation we had with Rick Beato here on the podcast about music, because Rick is absolutely my favorite music-related creator on YouTube. I love him. I love his videos. I watch them all the time. And what he talked about on our podcast was that his kids obviously are inundated with the world of music, because that's this guy's life. Sure. He has one kid who has perfect pitch, has like a superhuman, like literal superhero ability to, understand every single note and exactly what it is. But his kids' friends, when he was saying, when he asked them, what are they listening to? Who are their favorite musicians? What are their favorite bands? It's like talking to a wall. It just doesn't even register. It's not a thing. Like, we play video games. We love video games. We play Minecraft. We play Fortnite. We don't sit around listening to music. That's like boomer activity. That was the first thing I thought of with the movie theater thing. I'm like, okay, so this happened to music already. Now it seems like the same thing is happening with these big Hollywood blockbusters and going to the movie theater. I don't think this was really a thing that they got into on the Red Letter Media video, but it seems like one of the most potentially glaring issues here is the whole idea of going to the movies an antiquated boomer activity.
I think it's got to be. I think it has to be. The type of entertainment it offers is something that I think increasingly people are less interested in doing. Do you remember their video well enough to hit some of the bullet points on their argument?
Yeah, one of the main arguments which I also absolutely agree with, is that people now have gigantic home theaters. Like, virtually everyone has a huge, gorgeous television, which is something that, again, like, the younger generation doesn't understand, that when we were growing up, TV sucked. The screens were tiny. The resolution was awful. The resolution of a VHS tape was garbage. All of it was bad. DVD came along and made things better. But gosh, before the advent of HD TV, it looked like crap. Nobody I know, literally nobody, had like a home theater with like nice speakers and a receiver and all of that junk, which is kind of easy to get and not too expensive anymore.
Right.
Nobody had this stuff. The other thing I really wanted to say is that even if you were rich, which I had growing up when I was a young kid, 6, 7 years old, my cousin, I had some rich cousins. Okay. So they had everything, all of the latest tech. They were the ones I mentioned in my Visitel video. They had the Visitel.
Yeah.
They could blow, the equivalent of $2,000 on a gimmick to, see grandma and grandpa in Florida. They had a projection TV that was massive at the time. I have no idea how big it was by today's standards, but it was very, very big.
When you say big, I don't think younger people especially realize that how deep, how big those TVs were in all 3 dimensions.
Yes.
Yeah, not just big screen, but no, they were incredibly hard to move. And you actually, so with flat screen and even the thickest modern TVs are not very thick. The only limits to getting those into a room is the diagonal of the doorway, because you can turn a modern TV box in a friendly direction to navigate that. Well, when the unit is massive in all 3 directions, you have a problem, because most doorways are like 34 inches wide. And when it's essentially a cube of massive size, there's no orientation to get it through a normal doorway. So you have to have the room it's going to go in. You have to get this thing into your house. You have to get it through whatever labyrinth you have in that house, and have really like a set of double doors to get it in the room that it will eventually be in the end. I mean, so even the practical considerations of having a big setup at home, it disqualified a lot of people, even if they'd wanted to.
Yeah, it was absolutely huge. And also the screen sucked. The way that those projection TVs, it washed out the screen terribly just because of the nature of how they worked. It had to like there was like a light inside, I think, that so it was like it was like a back projector, so it'd project like backwards from inside that gigantic box. And what you ended up with was a really big picture that looked like garbage.
Yep.
Well, now we have very flat, very giant, very affordable, gorgeous, like OLED 4K TVs with couple that with online streaming, so that, I mean, basically at any moment you click like a button 3 times and you're watching exactly what you want, whether it is a movie or it's a prestige television series or it's a cartoon or anime or whatever you're interested in. I mean, the anime thing alone is so different than when we were kids. Like, no one had anime. I remember being the weird kid in high school, going to like Suncoast Video or whatever in the mall, like an hour and a half away, and spending like $40 to buy Ninja Scroll on VHS. Like, all hard. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Everything now is so at that time, it lended the concept of going to a movie theater to be an event, like a real thing that you would go to with your friends. You would look forward to the new releases. Oh my gosh, The Matrix is coming out and everyone's talking about it. We have to go see it before it's out of theaters. That's gone. That's completely gone.
It's gone. And when The Matrix came out, how long was it going to be before that film was on VHS or DVD? It was going to be many, many months, because this huge theatrical run had to play out, and then it would be available for purchase, release for home video. Then after that had its its own run, it would be an event to be on television. HBO was really the only place that was showing movies when they were in that rental/ownership day. That was why you would subscribe to HBO, so that you could see the newish releases without having to buy the movies. Well, something hit me. It was the Dune sequel. That was on Amazon as part of my Prime subscription. Like, was it 3-4 weeks after it came out in theaters?
Well, that was another one of his bullet points, is that now, since COVID, where big releases came to streaming so quickly, the market is conditioned, audiences are conditioned to say, well, I'll just wait a month and I'll just watch it at home for, even if it's $20, well, yeah, that's fine, because it's more or less what I would pay at the theater anyway. And it's actually much, much, much cheaper if you want to watch it with other people, because you're only paying the one fee, the one $20 fee, instead of everyone in the room paying $20, which is what it is to go to a movie and buy a ticket.
Yeah, as you're talking about this, I'm reminded, Sean Malone, who we had on a couple times, had a shortish Twitter thread about this some weeks ago, maybe a month or two, I don't know. But he was a go to the movie theater constantly guy.
He had Movie Pass when that was around. He had Movie
Pass. Yeah. I mean, they would go constantly to movies. That's what they liked, and got the home theater, and it was a lot better. And the incentive to just keep doing that disappeared. It eroded. It wasn't like an overnight thing. But I think about how many people have been wrong about this, and they assumed that watching a movie at home was an inferior experience, because it always was. And that was the thing, is that this, as a substitute good, is not substituting well enough for the real thing. Well, if you think about the process with these two paths, you go to the theater, which is not a time of your choosing. You're beholden to whatever schedule the theater is showing that movie. For most people, a theater is pretty close. So I'm not going to count that as a real problem. Like it would, it's a trip for me. It's not, 5 minutes away, but for most people, it's close. So that's not a huge deal. You mentioned the cost. I don't know about the current cost of the movie theater experience, but ticket plus a drink and popcorn is got to be $25 to $30. Does that sound right?
It could, yeah, at least.
Yeah.
It could be more than that. Yeah, for sure.
Multiply that by however many people you're going with. And this adds up to a lot of money. That's not great. It actually is nice to be able to pause a movie and go to the bathroom. Or your phone rings and, if you have to take the call, you take the call. If you want to stop to, I don't know, if you're one of those people who look something up on their phone as you watch a thing, whatever. And you're doing this from what is designed as a really comfortable, tailored experience for you because it's where you live. You've made your living room or bedroom or wherever you want to watch this into a place that you enjoy watching stuff at. So all of this is a fit. Waiting is not a thing anymore because not just that the timelines have shortened on when you can watch it, but you can fill that time with enjoyable other stuff. This is new. In the past, you could not fill that time with anything but renting or buying movies from a store, watching, whatever programming was on the one HBO channel. That's another thing is that I don't know how many HBO has now, but when I last had it as a real subscription, it was like there were like 7 channels that were HBO. I was like, the one movie channel, Stars existed as well, but you had that, and well, you didn't necessarily get what you wanted at any given time. Now, if you really want to see the sequel to Dune, you can wait a little bit longer and watch other stuff you enjoy in the meantime. That is not an inferior experience for most people. It's that thing that's like, the camaraderie aspect of being in a theater. That is a cool thing that you can't get at home, where a theater erupts at a really funny thing, or they're blown away at the same time as you are, 100 people are. Like, that's really cool, and you can't replicate that. At the same time, nobody is disrupting you at your house. Nobody is being obnoxious or, talking, being distracting, all of that. The last time I went to a theater was 10 years ago. I saw Fury, the Brad Pitt tank movie. And it was not a good experience in the theater. And I'd really looked forward to that movie for like a year. I was very into it. It was one of the only movies that I've ever planned to go see for a long time. And it just, was semi ruined by the other attendees. And I thought, I'll just stream stuff. Netflix was out then. Streaming Netflix was out then. And I was like, I'll just watch other stuff in the meantime, enjoy this a lot more at my own convenience for a fraction of the price. It's money I'm paying anyway for those subscriptions. Why would I do this? So everything that generally people thought made the home viewing experience inferior has either been wiped out of the discussion completely, or has turned out to be superior.
Superior. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Pausing, eating the food that you like to eat, and not just like shoveling popcorn into your mouth. The other discussion that I wanted to have is another thing that I thought of that's kind of more of a meta idea, is that, and I think about this with music, but I think that this is happening with video games. I actually saw somebody talk about this recently with video games, and I think it's happening with movies, is that we're in a weird place now where there's been so many decades of great entertainment that have been made that you can just go backwards and enjoy the old stuff that's probably better than the new thing. And that's another thing that I
Yes.
think is very, very new that I've seen like echoes of this being discussed. I haven't seen like a big discussion around it. It's that whether it is music or whether it is video games or whether it is movies, oh man, like when you have 40 years of the best stuff already probably really cheap and at your fingertips, wouldn't you rather go backwards and enjoy the stuff that you haven't experienced yet that you know is great rather than, rolling the dice on this new thing that may or we have no idea if it's good or not. Who knows if Furiosa is good or not? I have no idea. Well, I know that Fury Road was cool and I haven't watched that. So I'll just watch Fury Road instead for, essentially free. A movie that like everyone agrees is sick and excellent. And then I'll just wait and see what the public opinion is on this Furiosa thing and eventually get around to it if it's deemed worthy of watching. And I think this is
Yes.
happening with so many different industries because
Yes.
like I said, with video games, I saw this thing yesterday where this tweet that had a lot of interactions with it that was like, yeah, there are so many old video games that I know are great that I haven't played yet. I don't really care all that much about what's coming out now. Like, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
That is a really big new problem for all of these industries that never
Yes.
existed before, because before it was like, well, we're still making better and better stuff. When The Matrix came out, that was amazing. All of the different techniques and like the 360-degree camera technique
yeah.
that they invented to spin around Trinity when she, jumped up in midair. You'd never seen that. No one had ever seen that before because it hadn't existed. So that was novel. It was exciting. It was really, really cool. People talked about it.
Yeah.
Now, what is there to talk about? What is new that's so much better than what came before it? And I think that's really obvious with music because one of the fascinating things, Rick Beato did a whole episode about how many streams on Spotify old acts are getting. One of the acts that's getting absolutely astronomical numbers, like unbelievable numbers every month, is Queen. Queen gets like over 50 million monthly listeners. Okay. Why? Because the music is
Queen's
amazing. Awesome. It's Queen. Like Freddie Mercury has one of the most like unbelievable singing voices that has ever existed or ever will exist.
Yeah.
Are you going to be better than Freddie Mercury? Good luck.
I've mentioned this, I've mentioned how limited my music playlist is at this point in my life. It's very few songs, very, very, very few songs, and it's all the same songs. But I have 2 Queen songs on it. I mean, they occupy more of a space. They're actually there are only a handful of artists that I have 2 songs from on that list. So yeah, it's just timeless good stuff. But to me, this is something I've thought about for years and developed to a very detailed degree in another sector. And that sector is card collecting. It's the same phenomenon that you're talking about, where you have constant new releases of a thing that not only has to be weighed and measured with the competing new releases, but also against all past releases. This is the same with sports too, where you have something like a Hall of Fame. Great players. I mean, once they're 200, 300 plus people in something like a Hall of Fame, modern players have a really difficult task to kind of get on the list of, being in the conversation of being the all-time greats. So it's a question then of is their current relevance, whatever's happening in the now, which the old stuff can't compete with, because it's, live is live, being the Matrix sort of movie that's, oh my God, in the theaters right now, you've got to see this. Only the current stuff can do that. kind of by definition. But yeah, if that's not strong enough, what do you have? What do you have with something like baseball that's been around for, Major League Baseball as it is, well over a century? Each year you have a championship. Now it's the same with the Premier League and all of the soccer leagues. That current season has to be strong enough on appeal to really make it work. With movies, there's no such force annually that exists because nobody cares about the Oscars anymore. Nobody cares about the award shows. The data is grim on people even watching those. But if you don't have that seasonal, annual excitement and grind on a thing, then all you have is a new piece of media going in this just like endless compendium of competing media. And it's very much like a Dunbar's number concept. You made this video however long ago, but that's what got me thinking about how that rough concept applies to sports, because there's a limit to how many people you can really know about deeply without dedicating all of your free time to knowing about that sport. So like in the 80s and 90s, you could be a casual baseball history fan and truly know everybody who was in the Hall of Fame, and be able to have a discussion about where they rank and you can have fun with it. Well, now that institution has way more people in the mix, and it's very hard to keep track of. So let's say there's a similar concept with movies where there are, let's say there are 150, 200 movies that are really good fits for you. Why would you not live in that world until you've exhausted it and then, probably picked up some new interests from the things that you like there? Why would you pay tons of money to go see a movie when you could just kind of live in this fantastic world of things that fit for you? It's easier. It's more enjoyable. Why would you do this?
I don't know. And I don't think that the outlook here is very good for Hollywood and for the movie theaters in general, because I can't come up with ways in which, in Red Letter Media's video, they did come up with a short list of like, here's how, theaters could be saved. And, one of them, which I thought was interesting, I hadn't considered, is that there was like a Taylor Swift concert, I guess, that was released in movie theaters that did extremely well.
Tour. Yeah, okay. No, it crushed. Yeah.
It crushed because that was kind of like a cultural fandom moment for the people who love Taylor Swift to go to the thing together. They buy their tickets. They're all excited to be there in that spot at that dedicated time to enjoy this thing that they know that they're going to like. How many of those moments can movie theaters replicate? I don't know. But that's one instance in which it makes plenty of sense to have a reason basically to go and sit in a theater. One of the things that I thought was really funny, they didn't talk about this, but they kept playing clips, is how disgusting movie theaters are. They played a clip from from some, like local news station discussing how like the average movie theater seat has 13 times the bacteria as your toilet or something like that. It was something where they literally said, I'm not even joking, that you should take all your clothes off essentially as soon as you get home and just throw them in the wash because they're just like riddled with bacteria. But that's something that, as a kind of an amateur germaphobe myself, always grossed me out about going to the theater. This floor is always sticky.
That sucks.
The seats are kind of damp in like a very gross way. The last 2 times I went to a theater, it was very similar to your experience, in which people were just gross. They were like, literally, one person was just like working through some sort of sinus infection the whole time, just doing that like those noises, just like boogery sounds the whole movie. Another person is literally just on their phone with their bright screen and just whatever they were doing, texting. It doesn't matter. They're just on their phone. It's very bright and it's distracting and you can't look away because they're in front of you. They're in your periphery. So now you're dealing with that. And all I want to do is just silently be immersed and lose myself in this film. And I'm just surrounded by people being annoying and disgusting. I'm like, this blows. This is not good at all. And then, leaving the theater, just hearing the people complaining about how much they didn't like the movie that I just really loved. I sat there. It was Blade Runner 2049. I really liked it. I had a great time. I was really looking forward to that film. I enjoyed, every frame of it. And then just walking out of the theater behind people, just talking about how boring it was. I'm like, God. The other thing I thought of that is a very specific, it's kind of different, but at the same time, I thought there was a parallel, is the irrelevance of MTV as a station that plays music videos. So we saw this play out a long, long time ago. Like virtually no one listening to this under the age of 30 will have any idea what we're talking about. But this was like the millennial, maybe Gen X more so, complaint for a long time where it was like, remember when MTV used to play music videos? And being very angry about that because they grew up in an era in which whatever it was from 1983 until 1999 or whatever the age bracket, the year bracket was there. That's what MTV was. They played music videos. And that was the point of it. And then eventually it turned out that was not such a profitable way to have a TV station because no one would sit around watching music videos all day.
Didn't have to anymore. You didn't have to do it that way.
You could watch whatever music video you wanted to watch, when you wanted to watch it, how many times you wanted to watch it. Just rewind the thing over and over again all day if you want to on YouTube.
Yeah, and if you just wanted to hear the song, I mean, Napster did change a lot of things. You could get a song instantly for free immediately.
Yeah, and make a playlist of just the 17 songs that you love, for the next 2 months and just listen to those. And MTV was dead as we knew it. As it was created, there was no longer a need for a TV channel to play music videos all day because times changed, people's interests changed, the things that they wanted to spend their time being entertained by changed, and it was dead. That era was over. Mm-hmm. And now we're in the era that you outlined with all of the convenience of everything, how easy it is, how you can work it into your life rather than playing by, the times restrictions of a movie theater's life. All of this stuff combines to the death of movie theaters where, are they all going to go away? Probably not. Are most of them going to go away? It sure seems like it.
Did Red Letter go into anything about the studio model as it related to movie theaters? I can't remember if they did.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because that is probably going to be one of those things that changes. And I'm so glad that you brought up the Taylor Swift example on this, because that's significant for two reasons. One is it is. I'm going to talk about this clinically. But going to see that movie with however many seats are in a theater, that number of Swifties, is an inferior product to going to the actual live show. But it's actually affordable. You can do it. Everybody can go to the theater to see this Taylor Swift concert. So it's inferior, but at the same time, it's a great number two option. It's a really great substitute for the real thing. And that's a unique thing that most movies don't have That force is not part of what's at play with most movies. The second thing is that the Swifts bypassed studios with that film. They did not go through studios. They went directly to AMC, I think. They made the movie and went to AMC to work out a different revenue share for the film itself. And they got a much, much better deal than, had they gone through the studio system. But what this means is that if that studio model gets bypassed, a lot of movies that let's say independent movies, if they could work out a deal on revenue, with each theater, well, maybe it makes it economically viable to show movies you otherwise wouldn't have wanted to see or wanted to show. There may be an opportunity here, to get away from the studio blockbuster model. The blockbusters may very well be, if not on their way out, that is changing a lot. But this has the potential to open up a new way to do movie theaters, really. Opening up that market and getting away from the studio blockbuster dependency. Well, if you're an enterprising theater owner, or a company, a huge one like an AMC that's willing to kind of do things differently, you may very well be able to start showing movies that are a better fit for your local audience, offering something that perhaps you cannot get at home, making the experience something that is, worth doing. Some of this where, the really nice seating and all of that is is a modern development. That didn't exist in the past. Is the old school auditorium seating everywhere you went. But maybe there's a point to going to the movies. If you can tailor the experience to what people want and also giving them something that they cannot get elsewhere. That's why the Taylor Swift movie crushes, because the economics of going to a Taylor Swift concert are bonkers. Not everybody can do this. Well, you provide them with something that they otherwise couldn't get. Well, if you start to apply that mindset to films in general, well, maybe you can make a buck, but it would be a very different process than it is right now. With just like, here's the movies that are coming out. We as a theater or chain of theaters is going to roll with kind of what the studios give us. So it's kind of decentralizing it and turning it into a more of a boutique model, which, as great as I'm making this sound, that's very hard to pull off. It's very hard to do that well. So it's sort of like a higher risk, high reward scenario where the people who do it well are going to have great theaters, and most of them will not.
Yeah, one thing that they did mention in the video that I had completely forgotten about, but this was obviously such a thing, was when they were discussing the longevity of a film. You say Batman comes out in 1989 and it has its first run in all the major theaters, line down the block to get in, all of that existed back then. What I had forgotten about was that there was a second run later on, after the first run had ended, where you could see those movies for really cheap in second run theaters. So we had one of those growing up where you could see, a movie that came out a year ago or whatever for like $2. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was really, really cheap. It might even been less than, it was like $1.50. I think it was $1.50, and they would give you the 50-cent piece for change. There was a place in Oneonta where I'm pretty sure it was $1.50 for a movie, and they famously would give you a 50-cent piece as change.
Yeah,
do you remember that?
I do. That was the 1 and 2.
Yes,
that was the 1 and 2 theater. But there was one of those second run theaters in Syracuse, and that's where I saw Dumb and Dumber as a kid. Because my brother was going to Syracuse at the time, and we went to visit him. And it was $1.50. It was $1.50 to see, the movies that were past their new release phase. But in 1994 or 5 or whenever that came out, what was the alternative? You would rent it. I mean, that was it. It was definitely in the rental stores by that point. But it was so cheap that it was, what would it be? $3 to rent that movie probably. Well, okay. So like $6 for people to go, for 4 people to go see it in the theater, and it's a nice time, whatever. So that was worth it. It wasn't $120 for those 4 people to enjoy the movie. But yeah, no, the second run thing, those successful movies went for a long time. Jurassic Park ran for a shocking amount of time. Its theatrical run was like 17 months. It was crazy. I did this short a while ago about like October of 94 or something being the greatest movie month in theater history. I forget everything that was out, but it was like, Shawshank Redemption was in the theaters. Jurassic Park was still in theaters despite it coming out the summer before that summer. No. But yeah, it was even the less classic movies that were in theaters then are still really good. Like Clear and Present Danger was a good movie. So it's not in anybody's top 10 in cinematic history. But when number 15 at the time is still like a really good movie, then, things are good. But that was a nice way, those second run theaters, which I'm sure they still exist, where the model is just like make money off concessions. That was cool. That was, exploiting a little bit of inefficiency. Maybe there's a change in that respect. I don't know. Do you think there's a common denominator of what would make the theater experience good? A model that they could build that would satisfy all of us?
I don't think it's that simple. One of the things that they've started to do is like rerun old movies that they know people like. Mm-hmm. Like I'm pretty sure they did that recently with Spider-Man, maybe Spider-Man 2, one of the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. They did that with. I could see more of that happening where it's like, okay, we know people like this. It's come back to theaters. I think the cost is a really big problem because spending $30 to see a movie in a smelly theater with people that might be annoying is not appealing to literally anyone. That's a really big problem. So I think they have
$30 buys you 4 different streaming services.
Yeah. And the other thing that I just personally wanted to mention is that I haven't liked a new movie in a really long time. Like I just don't like them. They're not good. I don't know if that's a me problem, but I mean, I went to school for film. Okay. Like I like movies. I have seen a lot of movies. I'm interested in them. It was literally my major in college.
But you cast a wide net. I want to jump in on this because I don't want anybody to think that you have like film snob sensibilities. You like garbage just as much as the next person.
Oh, like, sure.
You enjoy stupid garbage movies just because they're enjoyable. So yes, you're coming in with like film school training, film, you're interested in it, but you also have all of the normal sensibilities where like the dumbest Schwarzenegger movie can still be, from the 80s can still be worth watching and a fun time. So you are casting a very broad net here, which means theoretically you should be able to enjoy a lot of movies.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I love the Police Academy movies. Those are terrible movies. And I have such a, soft spot in my heart for Police Academy movies, just as much as I'd like to sit down and watch something on the Criterion collection or whatever. Yeah. But man, there have been very few movies in years. In like the last 5+ years, where afterwards I was like, that was great. And I really enjoyed watching that. Like, that doesn't happen too often for me. Even with directors who I really like I have really just haven't liked the last couple of Wes Anderson movies. I didn't even make it through either of those. I was catching up on Paul Thomas Anderson films and really didn't like Inherent Vice. I've just been striking out a lot for kind of a long time, to the point where I'm not even enthusiastic at all about movies as a thing. Just like movies as a thing. I've been like, my interest has been severely hampered, dampened, and kind of crushed, certainly in the last 5 years, where, yeah, something is announced and I'm like, yeah, I don't have a whole lot of confidence that I'm even going to like watching this. So, I mean, like that's not this case with other mediums. That's not the case with video games. It's not the case with music. I listen to new music all the time. I love finding out new acts and new bands. I'm as interested in that as I've ever been. And with shows too, like new shows, like, oh, this is a great show, I'll definitely check it out right away. With movies uniquely, though, that has been another area for me in which I'm like, man, this sort of medium has just been not good.
I agree.
For a while. And I'm not sure how to figure out why that's the case. I'm not sure if that's, again, a me problem in which I've seen so many films that are so great that it's hard to live up to the expectations of those at this point, and I'm sort of jaded. That's possible, but it can happen. It happened with Banshees of Inisherin. Like, that was a movie that came out, what was that, last year or the year before, where I sat down and I literally thought about that movie for 3 days.
That was a great
nonstop
film. Like, it worked as a film. It was exactly in the medium that it should have been. And it was great.
It was great. And that's kind of my list. Like, it's like,
yeah,
those films now just seem so hard to find. And I don't really get why that is. Even a lot of the stuff that is supposed to be like prestige film, like A24 stuff, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess it's good, but it doesn't make me feel anything. It doesn't make me feel like Banshees of Inisherin did, where I'm like, this is why I watch a movie. This is thought-provoking and meaningful and just filled with nuance and layers, and I love thinking about it. It seems like whatever, like the auteurs of the day that seem to be cranking those out. I mean, God, even the last Tarantino film I didn't like. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I didn't like. A lot of people love that film. If you love that film, I'm glad that you like it. I didn't. I watched it and I was like, this was kind of a waste of time.
I have a feeling that the stuff that we increasingly are appreciating is not part of the studio model so much anymore. You know, A24 is a good example here of being a real studio that has succeeded with often, you know, fringe movie concepts. They took tons of chances making movies that kind of no real studio would touch, and they did a really good job with it, and they built up into a real thing. But there's probably really small production houses and filmmakers who are still concerned about the things that we find meaningful, that we find funny. I mean, we're talking about serious movies, but like the lowest hanging fruit in film for like our lifetimes was take a very funny person and put them into a movie, and it's going to have enough funny parts to make that movie worth watching. Now those funny movies don't exist. You know, we talked about Adam Devine saying that they're like 4 a year, you know, but like even things that are meant to just be really funny are not all that funny to me. they just, it's a different feel than what it used to be there. But there are a lot of shows that are funny. There are a lot of shows I like. So when you're talking about the excitement factor being gone for any kind of new release, the only time I can remember in the last few years of wanting to see a film that wasn't out yet was the Dune sequel, because I liked the first one. So I knew that I was going to like the second one, and I did. But when that came up to rent or buy or something, I'm like, oh, groan. I'll wait until it's another 2 weeks until it's free. But yeah, generally, no. But I am excited for shows. I'm excited for documentary series to have new seasons. The Jinx just did its second season recently. It wasn't amazing. It was. I'm glad I watched it, but it didn't blow me away. But I was excited for the new season of The Jinx to drop. I'm excited for new shows. I was actually really disappointed in one, a British show that checked all the boxes to be a very good show, and I didn't even make it through the first episode. It happens. But yeah, documentaries, true crime series, dramas. I do look forward to those. I do, but I don't have that same feeling with movies so much anymore. I just don't. I don't. The genres that I in particular like have been, this is definitely a me issue where I like very realistic Westerns. That's just not a genre anymore. It just isn't. Every few years you get one Western film that's good, and it's just not 1970 anymore. But yeah, the historical stuff is usually pretty goofy. They really phone in the things that I like. I like very real, raw experience, which is why I liked Fury. Fury was excellent at portraying like the mundane conflict within the tank group. It was fantastic. It was very realistic. There was no moralizing, and it was, no, here's a collection of people who have to exist in a box, and if they screw up, they all die. Here's a glimpse into that dynamic. That was awesome. I tried to watch the Apple, the plane one, the flying show. We talked about it because I think it was Task and Purpose did a premiere with Apple TV on this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I don't remember what it's called.
We Are the Mighty, maybe it was. Might have been. Well, yeah, whatever. I mean, it was one of the military publications that we're familiar with. Anyway, it was like, kind of Band of Brothers-y stuff that didn't quite rise to the level of Band of Brothers, And I thought, no, man, I want to watch a show that's just a little bit more raw. It wasn't there. So the things that I value, there seems to be less and less of. And I do search for them. It's not like they've just become harder to find. They have, but I'm good at finding things. That's a significant part of what I do. So if it exists, I can get to it. And these things just don't really exist like they used to. And there must not be enough people like me to justify making them. The most famous Western of the last 5 years. Can you name it?
No.
Be creative when you think about this. It's the most famous Western of the last 5 years.
5 years. I can't even think
creatively. That's my hint.
I give up. I have no idea. I can't even think of a single Western in the last 5 years.
The most famous Western movie of the last 5 years is Rust, starring Alec Baldwin.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a Western. I don't know anything about that movie.
I'm pretty sure it's a Western.
He killed a person.
That's right. I don't think the movie, ever got finished. I don't know. But in terms of a movie being famous that's in that Western genre, that's far and away the most famous. And not because it was a great film. Its fame has nothing to do with the film itself. So that genre is not, it's not kind of amazing like it used to be. But even when Unforgiven came out, it was like, oh, this is kind of the last great Western. They don't make those anymore. The Western as a genre was kind of dead by the late 80s. But anyway, when I do see a Western, and there are a lot of them made, they're just weirdly like cookie cutter / Mad Lib things that just happen to be set in the past. Every once in a while, there's a really good display. But yeah, not so much. So yeah, okay, this is my question, Kevin. What would have to happen to bring you back to a theater? What has to come out to get you legitimately excited to go see a movie in the theater?
I don't know. Oh, geez. That's really hard to say because I really don't want to go to a theater. I think, I did leave the house to go to see Blade Runner 2049 because it had been how many years since the first one came out. And I really am a big fan of Denis Villeneuve, who also did Dune. I mean, his movies are unbelievably gorgeous. That certainly helps.
Yeah.
So it would definitely have to be some director who I absolutely love everything that they do. And it's some kind of spectacle that would be, diminished to watch at home. But I don't know. It's getting harder and harder to check those boxes for me. It also just seems like this is probably another discussion in general about storytelling, but that people don't really understand humans anymore. Like they don't understand how people are or who people are or why they are the way they are or why they react to situations the way that they do. In so many of these films, it seems like that's just very surface level and generic and boring. The other thing I wanted to mention is movies are too long. All of these movies are 2.5 hours. Like so many of my favorite movies of all time are like 90 minutes. Yeah. They're an hour and a half and you're done. Like how long is First Blood? That is a short movie. It's a short, they were all simple movie.
I mean, you say 90 and I'm thinking that long? The runtime on most of those films that were awesome was like, an hour 18. You were in and out real quick.
Okay, First Blood is an hour and 33 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
There you go, 93 minutes, and you're done. And you've told the story you wanted to tell and nothing more. And you leave feeling satisfied. Man, so many of these movies I could not tell you the amount of times, and this may be just, getting more and more ADD because of being terminally online. But the amount of movies that I watch where I will pause the film to see how much is left. Mm-hmm. And I get just so discouraged. I get so this sounds ridiculous, but I'll be watching a movie. I'll be liking it. I'll pause to see how much is left. And there'll be like another hour and a half. And I'm like, what? No. How is there still an hour and a half of this movie to watch?
I'm the opposite.
I can't believe it.
I like the epics. I like, Gettysburg is one of my favorite films of all time, and that's like 4 hours. I mean, it was that was shown in 2 parts. I mean, it was the last movie I saw with an intermission. Because I like
those too, but they should be rare. Like they should be reserved. Like Seven Samurai is an insanely long movie that has an intermission. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. Okay, Lord of the Rings are very long. Those movies are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Some movies can pull this off, and they'll be wonderful. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot that has to happen.
Yes.
Right. Not everything has to be 3 hours. Like, what are we doing? Not everything should be an epic. There's a time and a place for that style of film. But everything that you're releasing is suddenly 2 hours and 45 minutes? No. There's no reason that, I don't know, whatever. How long was like Suicide Squad? Like how long are some of these movies for absolutely no reason?
I don't know the ins and outs of that. I gravitate toward the long movies because the topics I like tend to be the ones that fit needing all that time for extrapolating several different things.
Both Suicide Squad movies were over 2 hours and 10 minutes. That's ridiculous.
They should be tight action films.
Yes. Popcorn film.
Yep.
Yeah. And now you're turning it into The Godfather. Like, please stop.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, the theaters are in a weird spot here because they don't make the movies. So they are 100% dependent on what studios do. And they have to find a way to survive here, despite having no control or influence at all over the product. All they can do is choose what they run.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit like grocery stores where they don't make any of the food, but they can choose what they sell and how much it costs. The difference between grocery stores and movie theaters is that if you don't see a movie, you don't die. Whereas if you don't eat, you do die.
Yeah.
So they're in a really, really tough spot. Very tough spot. Yeah, we'll see. You got to be creative.
That's true. I mean, I didn't even think about that, but that's actually a really interesting point, is how passive they are with the product. It's not like a restaurant where you can make your menu.
Right.
They're not a restaurant. They can't make their menu. They are wholly dependent on what someone else is making and whether other people like that or not. That's a terrible position to be in.
They are dependent on the public consciousness over a movie. So you go by and see the movies that are playing and you've never heard of any of them. Well, what do you do? So they're dependent on how well, the hype and the advertising and the excitement and all of that has worked for months. They are squeezed at both ends of this whole thing with no way to control or influence it. They just plain have to deal with the results of both of them and then do it in a way that makes people happy. That's brutal. That's a horrible combination.
That's a bad business model.
It's not
that
great.
Is a terrible business. All right. Well, we got to go. Thank you so much to all of our patrons for hanging out with us. We hope you enjoyed this Death of the Movie Theaters discussion. Let us know what you think about it. We will be back next week. And until then, we will see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week. And the recent support has been amazing. Sid Poke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezer Good, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and the Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Ferrycoon, Jen Mafasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahim, Natsu, Penny Piddler, Ryan Steer, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Bidiover. And a tremendous shout-out to our elite baby gang commanders. Atrocious Scuff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot, Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight, Vinthos, Yeetus Deletus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, and of course, Trev's dead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer, editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yosua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it, and thanks to Main Gear for powering all our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.